Welcome to another exciting episode of D's Let's Talk About It, the sports podcast where we touch on all the hot topics. We're currently in our series of the NFL Combine, NFL divisions, and today we'll be breaking down the NFC South and the AFC East. I am your host we are your host, Damien and D. What's going on, D? How you doing this morning, man?
What's going on, bro?
Not much, man. We're just gonna get on into it. We're gonna touch on the Carolina Panthers to start out with. Some things that I found are concerning. First and foremost is the free agency or pending free agency of Brian Burns. Um, what to do? Carolina has so many holes, and they need offensive line. They need to up the defense. They got a coaching change, but Brian Burns seems to be the priority first and foremost. They don't have a first round pick. If you care to elaborate a little bit with Brian Burns on that situation, you could go ahead and shoot on that, bro.
Yeah, I think Brian Burns right now they have to find out a way. They have to find a way for him to benefit their team one way or another. Um, Most importantly, you can't build around Bryce Young with the limited picks you have this year. Not having a first round pick is
Hmm.
uh is somewhat detrimental, honestly. Uh, the tag and trade, you're seeing that now with L'Jarius Sneed in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Um, Same thing with T. Higgins in Cincinnati.
Hmm.
Uh, I think Burns is, if I'm not mistaken, I read the other day Burns is trying to seek like 30 million a year.
Yeah.
Trading, tagging, trading. You got teams that were in the playoffs last year. Baltimore could use him. Philly,
Hmm.
possibly. Someone's gonna want him because he's young.
Hmm.
Um, I would even consider Shaq Thompson trading
Hmm.
him as well, and I'd field calls for Joe Horn.
Okay.
Joe Horn and Dante Jackson, they're top corners. I'd field calls for them as well because the name of the game now is points, and your offense isn't producing enough. You have too many holes. You don't have weapons. You don't have. You got holes on your offensive line. You got
Hmm.
your running backs. Miles Sanders, his game completely fell off from a year ago when he was with Philly. Uh, so I would have to tag and trade. I'm going to take as many offers for as many players as I can to try to build a young nucleus around
Okay.
Bryce.
Okay. So the name of the game is player acquisition here. Uh, like you said, trade, try to get as many picks as you can to get assets. Try to reach out into the free agent market the best you can. I don't think any of the top tier free agents that will be on the market will be interested in Carolina at this point because it's just too many holes to fill. And typically, your free agents are going to want to be in win now. We know you have a
Hmm.
few that look for the cash, but they don't. I don't think they necessarily going to have the cash to spend on a high market because if they do that, they might as well keep Burns. But
Right.
at this point, it's just trying to get acquisition for more picks and try to get back into the first round with a trade with Burns, or at least acquire more picks to build depth along the offensive and defensive lines and add weapons to help Bryce Young out. Well, we'll move on. And we'll move into the next team, the Saints. This is a team that is not a mess, but they just have a lot of veteran players on contracts, and they have some free agents, namely and Darius Pete. But they got two question marks on what to do with Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. Uh, in my opinion, we've discussed this offline. Is possibly cutting Kamara, cutting because I don't think you can trade him at this point with his off the field action and his production on the field is dwindled due to injury. Michael Thomas the same way. As far as on the field, he just continues to stay injured. So at this point, you may want to cut those two players, and you got a situation with Derek Carr, quarterback situation behind him, what to do as far as Jameis and even the gadget quarterback, Taysom Hill. You want to elaborate on that a little bit more, bro?
Yeah, I think Taysom Hill is a big contract. Kamar's a big contract. They restructured Derek Carr,
Hmm.
um, but I like unlike the Carolina Panthers, I don't see anyone wanting to take on Kamara.
Mhm.
and Michael Thomas, due to age, injury, like you said, the stuff off the field with Kamara.
Mhm.
This is a veteran run defense. This team is going to be defensively led. You got Cameron Jordan, Honey Badger, Marshawn Lynch, Mario Davis. So you got a cornerstone at each level, and all of them are kind of getting up there in age. I think I'm pretty sure Marshawn Lattimore is the youngest. He might be 28, 29 maybe.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
they've drafted a lot of young corners recently. You're gonna have to cut. You're gonna have to cut Kamara and
Mhm.
Michael. Um, Potentially trade maybe some of those bigger picks, but Dennis
Mhm.
Allen is more of a defensive coach.
Mhm.
Um, with what's going on in Denver right now with Russ and Sean Payton, before I do call, before I do cut him, I'm gonna make a call out there and see if he
Mhm.
wants any of his former players. Taysom Hill,
Mhm.
you're gonna be in a quarterback situation. You might
Mhm.
be too low to draft one of the top guys.
Yeah.
Um, Get you somebody who knows your system. Get you somebody who knows what you want to do, knows how you want the quarterback position played. Um, but yeah, this team, if Carolina is able to, because we're operate with a rookie head coach now, if
Mhm.
they're able to flip a few of their players to acquire more um, draft picks, because they're going to have to draft, like we said,
Mhm.
free agents aren't going to want to come there. It's looking like for the Saints, free agents aren't going to be able to come there.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to do a lot in free agency. That you're going to spend free agency trying to get under the cap.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have some tough decisions ahead for the Saints, man. I don't
Yeah.
see this team being I don't see this team being a playoff team next year.
No.
They'll be right where they're at now, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I agree. There'll be a team that's competitive, but not a threat to either make the playoffs or do any real damage within the division. This is a team that is pretty much holding off the inevitable of a rebuild.
Right.
Um, they sit with the 14th pick, but it's like, what do we do with this 14th pick at this point? I mean, you can add a piece here, but with so much veteran and so much cap. So much problems with what they have with cap space right now. There's nothing really they can do but just ride the wave and get to 2025, 2026 to start the rebuild. I mean, it's pretty much inevitable. But
Hmm.
that's pretty much what we got on them. We'll move on to the next team, the Southern City of Atlanta. This is a team that's opposite the Panthers and the Saints. It seems to be a team that has room. They have key pieces in place. They just need a trigger man.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of discussion, a lot of rumors, a lot of open talks that a son may be coming home via trade. It could happen. Not saying it is, but all the rumors and anybody that knows the know knows that there has been some talks between a trade of the Atlanta with the Atlanta Falcons and the Chicago Bears to acquire Justin Fields. They sit with the eighth pick also, man. Um, it's a little bit of a quagmire because you ask if they aren't able to get that trade to go to get Justin Fields, do they go quarterback? And if they do, will the quarterback that they won't be on the board? Um, you got any analysis on that, man? When you just think about the pick that they have.
Pick wise, with Raheem Morris coming home,
Mhm.
you have AJ Terrell, Dallas Turner could be in play.
Mhm.
Um, your offensive line is somewhat young and somewhat kind of intact. You got a cornerstone at tight end. You got a cornerstone at running back. You got a cornerstone at wide receiver. Like you said, you need your trigger man. I saw something that kind of intrigued me a bit. Um, Russell Wilson.
Mm.
If they're unable to get, I'll give you a couple reasons on why it was intriguing to me.
Wow.
If they're unable to get Justin Fields, because Justin Fields seems to be the hot commodity now, with
Hmm.
him being young, him being athletic, and all that. So, that's the name of the game now when it comes to the quarterback position. How athletic a player is, can we develop certain things and run what he wants to run well? Um, but Russell Wilson didn't turn the ball over a lot last year.
Hmm.
If you get a quarterback in there who's not going to turn the ball over, behind a solid offensive line, running the ball with Bijan,
Hmm.
dumping it off to Kyle Pitts. You got a big target in Drake London. Obviously, you're
Hmm.
going to need some more offensive weapons. Um, but if you get a signal caller in there, a veteran guy, Russell Wilson would probably be the best quarterback in that division if he came there.
Hmm.
And opposed to just devil's advocate, if you will, opposed to trading my capital for Justin Fields and potentially having to pay Justin Fields.
Hmm.
If the Broncos release Russell Wilson, you can pay him league minimum, and the Broncos are still on the hook for, I believe it's like 39 million.
Hmm.
So you can literally pay Russell Wilson league minimum. Now, as a quarterback, does he fit the culture, if you will, of Atlanta? I think Justin Fields being back home and all that, I personally think he would probably be a better fit.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to say Vic 2.0, but he'd be the next best thing
Yeah.
on that turf in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, lighting it up. That read
Yeah.
option with him and um, Bijan would be
Bijan.
nice. Would be
Hmm.
nice, but the offensive coordinator is coming from the McVay tree. They don't
Yeah.
really. They don't really fool. I'm not gonna say they don't fool. They don't usually have the athletic guy at quarterback.
Yeah.
They usually have one who's not going to turn the ball over, the gunslinger, if you will. Look what they were able to do with Matt Stafford. Before they
Hmm.
had Stafford, they had Goff. Um, when they were they were in the Shanahans, when they were with the at the time the Redskins, now the
Hmm.
Commanders, they had RG3, but Kirk Cousins is really the one who facilitated that offense.
Hmm.
But Russell Wilson intrigued me a lot there. When I heard it, I was watching ESPN. But honestly, man, you got to make a splash. You got to make a
Yeah.
splash. You know how Atlanta is. You got to make a
Yeah.
splash. You're not going to be able to give up too much. You're going to give up too much if you go up to try to get one of these top three guys.
Yeah.
And it's looking more and more like Jaden Daniels could be the guy.
Yeah.
It's
That's the
looking
name I
more and
heard.
more. It's looking
Hmm.
more and more. So I know this week is the combine. After that, we'll probably start talking into and trying to operate some mock drafts and whatnot. Play with
Yeah.
those here and there, and get to see how those things go. But I really think that Justin Fields will be the way that I go because you'd be able to give him for a second, even maybe a third round pick, and then
Yeah.
you're still able to continue to build on that defense. You have nice pieces on defense. Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell, um, Grady Jarrett has been injured.
Hmm.
Could be a potential. I'm not sure if he's a free agent or not. I don't think he is, but he could be a potential trade to get back anything that you have to give up for Justin Fields. Maybe you could packaging with a pick to get Justin Fields.
Yeah.
So I think there's ways to do it, but Atlanta is very, very, very intriguing to me. This
Hmm.
could be the NFC South champion next season if everything is done right at that main position.
Okay. I ask you one more question on that trade. So you think that the Bears wouldn't try to be greedy and try to ask for that eighth pick
Well,
at
and
number eight?
okay, so another thing I saw, the Bears also picked ninth.
Yeah.
So could you do the eighth pick and a fourth round pick for the ninth pick in Justin Fields, or the eighth pick and a third round pick for the ninth pick in Justin Fields? Because now, if the Bears are greedy and that's the way they want to operate, now
Hmm.
you're going to have teams who want to jump in front of the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah. You right. You
So
right.
then you can really, you can get a haul
Yeah.
for that eighth pick. So you're still coming up off of Justin Fields. You're going to take a quarterback number one. I watched this is a combine, so I started watching some of the combine, and Ryan Poles was saying that he wants to make sure that this is done right. They want to do right by Justin.
Hmm.
So he said he wants to get him traded as well before free agency starts too, and I believe that's coming up in the next 2 weeks. So
Hmm.
look, we will probably look to see him on the move next week at the latest, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and close out on the Atlanta Falcons and transition into Tampa Bay. They're intriguing also. I mean, it seems that every team in this division has uh, some real serious free agent questions. outside of Atlanta. I say that. But this is the team that seems to have the most key members of the past Super Bowl team: Mike Evans, Devin White, Levante David. I see you still got Baker Mayfield questions on what they want to do. Greg Gaines, William Golson. I see Anton Winfield here, just to name a few. Um, the interesting thing here is Mike Evans. It's similar to what should they do here, no different than Brian Burns in Carolina. Do they try to sign and trade? Do they let him walk? I mean, I don't think they'll let him walk. He's 30 years old. He's still in his prime years. You can still get a couple of years out of him. So do they try to make a move there and possibly just try to acquire picks or trade up? You know, you can use him as a tool or trade bait in this draft. I would have to see where they're drafting at this year.
In the
Um,
20s, I think.
in the 20s. So if they wanted to move up, and that's the decision, if they wanted to try to get in position to try to get a quarterback that they wanted, if they weren't confident in going on with Baker, even though Baker did have a surprisingly decent season for them this year, but I don't think that they're looking at him as a franchise. He's at this point looks to be more of a bridge quarterback for the next guy, just a stopgap. And I don't know if they would look at it as if, okay, we'll ride out the Baker Mayfield train and then we'll just be prepared to rebuild. Uh, Especially with the pending free agents that they have this year with Devin White, Levante David, to name a few. You got anything to add on that?
Yeah. So with all the free agents that they have, they are in a tough position. Todd Bowles is a defensive guy.
Hmm.
Um, from what I've seen and heard, it's looking more and more likely that they're going to tag Antoine Winfield.
Okay.
Um, I believe Devin White's gone. For some reason, he seemed to have fallen into the doghouse the past couple of years.
Hmm.
Now, with their OC going on to Carolina, you got to think what's going on. What will happen with Baker? If I'm not mistaken, they brought in one of the coaches that he had when he was with the Rams for his his little stint with the Rams the season before last. But
Hmm.
I've seen Mike Evans say he wants to retire a Buck. I've seen the Bucks say they want Mike Evans to be a Buck for life. He's made his money. He's won a
Hmm.
Super Bowl. He's older. He's 1,000 yards every year. He's every season he's been in the NFL. If I'm not mistaken, he's topped 1,000 yards. Um, if I'm Mike Evans and Antoine Winfield is tagged, I obviously want to test the market.
Hmm.
Um, because you have so many unknowns right now. You have
Hmm.
so many unknowns. They did just cut Shaq Barrett. You got two younger edge guys. You got Carlton Davis and
Hmm.
Jamel Dean at corner. So for the most part, they'll probably bring back Levante David on a 1 year deal. He's another older guy,
Hmm.
but a Buck for life type deal. But you're not going to be able. I don't think they're going to give Baker Mayfield any huge money.
Hmm.
A decent deal though.
Hmm.
Somewhere but now you got to think a decent deal now could be 40 million a year.
Yeah.
Dax potentially at 60.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've seen and heard that Baker and the Bucks could be potentially far apart on money. So, and if Mike, if you're going to tag Antoine, I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to have Mike. Do I want to come back?
Yeah. That's
Do I
true.
want to come back? Do I want to see what other options are available to me out there? The Raiders will need a signal caller.
Hmm.
They have weapons. Antonio Pierce, that they have new attitude, things like that. So this is gonna be interesting too. This is gonna be interesting
Yeah.
too. I just don't see them allowing some of their defensive players to go,
Hmm.
especially since you're going to bring in a new offensive coordinator anyway. So it's more than likely that they will have a veteran. They'll probably go the veteran route at quarterback
Hmm.
because they're picking so late. Um, Maybe Bo Nix, maybe Penix,
Yeah.
later on, maybe they trade out of that first round and accumulate some more stuff and
Hmm.
pull the trigger on one of those young guys early in the second round. But it's they're very interesting to me overall because of where they were
Hmm.
and where they can kind of end up. You know,
Hmm.
they had a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Unlike the Falcons, they're missing that one piece.
Hmm.
The Bucks, it's like someone dropped the puzzle on the floor. Like you're scattering,
Yeah.
trying to make sure that you got all the pieces that you need. So
Yeah. It's trying to pick up the right pieces. The name you threw out there I find interesting is Michael Penix. Because he would be a quarterback that most likely would be available because I would look at him as either the fourth or fifth quarterback that would be
mhm.
taken. And he's a Tampa son. So I could see them possibly looking to be some interest if he's there to bring him home. Uh, but we'll prepare as we close out with the South. We're going to prepare to discuss the AFC East. Um, all right,
We'll
we're
get with
back, and
you.
this time we're ready to touch on the NFC, on the AFC East. I'm sorry, D. We're gonna get into the Patriots, man. It's very intriguing. This is a big transition time for them. You moving on from a legendary coach. That's what, six Super Bowls. You bringing in a new coach in a city. He's African American, and he made sure in his press interview to him and Robert Kraft kind of touched on that jokingly, but I found it a little, it was a little off and odd at the same time. But they're intriguing because they went 4-13 in a division where it's now very competitive when at their height it wasn't.
At all.
And now it's like, okay, you're trying to rebuild, and now every other team that you beat up on for the betterment of a decade and a half, they're all better than you. Even the Jets are better than you. Personnel wise, they're just better than you. So we're introducing Gerard Mayo. They sit with the third pick in the draft, bro, and they also have needs. In my opinion, I'm not going to touch strongly on the draft just yet, but with that third pick, I know there's been rumored interest in the hot commodity name of Jaden Daniels. But I ask you to start off just with this question about that pick. Do you think that Drake May or Jaden Daniels, because one of those two are going to be there, if not both of them? Uh, would you think the Patriots go there? Because I do think that they're going to go quarterback, and that's just my opinion.
When you look at this team offensively,
Mhm.
do I because you got to think, and you have a rookie coach now.
Mhm.
Like you said, it's going to be a transition. With all the winning they have done, is
Mhm.
how much leash is or how much grace is Robert Kraft going to allow Gerard Mayo? If he's going to allow him to build the team up,
Mhm.
I'd trade the pick, unless I'm absolutely in love with one of the quarterbacks. Um, you throw either quarterback in there, who are they throwing the ball to? Who are they handing the ball to? This team is not a quarterback away.
Mhm.
Um, this could be a team similar to what the Bears were last year. Get you a haul for that pick.
Okay.
Get you a haul for that pick because there's some teams. The Giants could potentially move up. The Raiders could potentially move up. We talked about the Buccaneers, seeing what they do
Mhm.
in the draft. If they're unable to get Baker Mayfield, could they possibly move up for a rookie quarterback?
Mhm.
Um, and you could definitely get a haul for that that number three overall pick. So if it was me, I'm trading it.
Okay.
I'm
I
trading
fi-
it.
Go ahead.
They have the third most cap space, the number
Mhm.
three overall pick. Um, Obviously, it depends on what they do free agent wise. Now, if they go out in free agency and they spend big,
Mhm.
absolutely, I'm going to take. If Jaden Daniels there, I think that would be my pick more so than Drake May.
Mhm.
Um, I know there's a lot of people enamored with him and whatnot, but size and things like that. Jaden Daniels dynamic, and he's not a run first quarterback. I was just watching Get Up, and Dan Orlovsky, he always breaks down the quarterbacks pretty well. He was showing his throwing motion. It's
Mhm.
very similar to CJ Stroud. They're both from the Cali area.
Mm-hmm.
They've grown up, going to the passing camps with those two, and as well as Bryce Young. So the kid is smart. The kid is dynamic. The kid can throw. He's not one to take very many hits, and he can outrun angles. I wanted to see him perform at the combine, but he's not going to do any testing. I don't think any of the top three guys are doing any testing. Um, if I'm building up my core, and I'm sorry, I seem to always make the short story long, bro, but
Mm-hmm.
um, if I can build up the core and get me some wide receivers in, then yes, I would take it. But I would want to do this more like how the Packers did. Build you a young
Good.
nucleus, build you a young nucleus of players for him to grow with. And the
That's
only way
good.
to do that is to trade. I would trade the pick. I would trade the pick, and like I said, get me a nice young nucleus to build a new culture
Mm-hmm.
moving forward with my new coach. Um, as we move on from the Belichick and Brady era.
I find that intriguing that you mentioned the Packers because I had found an article I was going to mention talking about one name, Elliot Wolf, who came from the Packers organization, and it's already said in a statement that they're scrapping even the way they've drafted.
Yep.
They're no longer looking for just the best fit for a role. They're transitioning to trying to build the way the Packers built. Um, Elliot Wolf is also saying a longtime exec with the Green Bay Packers, and he's saying they're restructuring even how they evaluate talent at the combine. So that's the reason why I raised the question of do they go quarterback, like we said,
Mm-hmm.
because when he's in Green Bay, we had this discussion when we were talking the NFC North. It
Right.
seems like Green Bay always finds himself in a position to at least have a franchise quarterback. So is this a situation that he's looking like that, or will he look like you said to scrap that pick, pick up more picks later down the draft, and then just go from there? So it's very interesting with the Patriots. I don't see from what I looked at their free agents, they don't have any necessarily dire free agents right now. I mean, you got Hunter Henry, he's 29. Trenton Brown is 30 years old. Kendrick Bourne, who is a wide receiver who they may want to keep, is 28 years old. I mean, they don't have any. Zeke's a free agent. You see what I'm saying? It's a lot
I
more
think their
aging
big,
free
yeah.
agents.
I think their biggest, youngest free agent is Kyle Duggar,
Yeah,
the safety.
yeah, the
Yeah,
safety. He's there. He's 27, and I think that's their biggest. If they want to keep Mac Wilson, these are the kind of free agents that we're
yes.
talking about with them. It's nothing really seriously dire to where
They can
they,
they can all go.
yeah, and they can go out. They, like you said, they got the money to spend, and they got the draft capital. Sorry, that if, that if they want to either take that franchise quarterback or move back and just acquire more pieces to build around the whoever the quarterback they decide on, either drafting later or through free agency, or either if they're going to stick with Mac Jones. They have they found themselves in one of the better situations in the league, period. um, for pieces, acquisition, all of that. I don't see anything other than quarterback. I mean, wide receiver and tackle are needs for them for this upcoming draft. So, and I think they deep draft for wide receiver, steady draft for tackle. I mean, the Patriots in a prime position. This is one of the teams like that has a transition, but their transition could be one of the better ones in the whole entire league, from transitioning from not being a playoff team, the Brady years, the Belichick. It could be smooth, and it's really key this year with free agency and draft. But moving on.
Hold on. I got one more thing on them.
Yeah,
I
one
got
more
one more
thing you
thing
want to
on
add, man? Okay.
where they're at right now
Mm-hmm.
and where their division is. How you started this was that when they were on top, their division was weak.
Mm-hmm.
They could potentially be coming around that mountain to them being on top again. We're going to talk on everyone else. Obviously, we're starting with the bottom rung.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets are going to have to pay a lot of people.
Yeah.
How long is Aaron Rodgers going to be there? How long is the coaching staff going to be there? The Dolphins, they're already cap strapped.
Yeah.
They're going to have a decision to make on Tua, this decision to make on Waddle. Christian Wilkins. They're gonna have a lot of stuff going on.
Ooh,
The
boy.
Bills are also cap strapped, and
Yep.
with them falling short as much as they have of the recent years, is that going to be the same team that comes back? So just like I said when we did our NFC West regarding Kyler,
Mm-hmm.
Mac Jones was a Pro Bowler his rookie year. He was a Pro
Mm-hmm.
Bowler. He didn't. He's not. He was broken based off of what Belichick did. How you brought in a special teams coordinator, a defensive coordinator to be your offensive coordinator. That
Yeah.
that that really diminished what he was able to do. But he's still on your roster.
Mm-hmm.
Could you bring in a veteran? Could you bring in someone like Russell Wilson that you can pay for a minimum, league minimum, to
Mm.
compete with back, build up the skill players around him? You build this roster up the right way with the capital that they have as far as money and draft. You
Mm-hmm.
trade that third overall pick. When you do drop that right quarterback in there, you could be right there in the thick of things.
Yeah.
Like you said, this is a transitional period for them that I don't think anyone outside of New England is going to be bummed out if this team is drafted in the top 10 again next year, as
Yeah.
long as they're starting to make some form of progress.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. It all depends on how much grace Gerard Mayo is given.
Yeah. That
So
makes perfect sense, man. Well, we'll transition to the next franchise, and that is the Jets. That went 7-10. They have the 10th pick, man. And the thing about it is they put all their chips into onto the table last year, and they're in a win now mode, but with a pretty much young roster, particularly on defense. I mean, the defense has a lot of key pieces with I know they have key free agents right now with see Jordan Whitehead, Bryce Huff is a key player that's a free agent. You got Carl Lawson, who's a free agent for them. But they had some young pieces, particularly other than Bryce Huff, Jermaine Johnson, uh, Sauce Gardner. You know, they got a couple of young pieces on that defensive side and on the offensive side at the wide receiver position. They still got their running backs in his prime years. It's just a question of that trigger man. Aaron is going to be coming off of a torn, was it an ACL? Oh,
Achilles,
MC, Achilles. Okay.
Achilles,
So he tore his Achilles, and he's already what 30 what years old?
he's
36,
40,
40. Okay. All right. So you got an old quarterback coming off an Achilles tear. You obviously don't want to go quarterback at this point, even with the 10th pick, because you just drafted Zach Wilson, what, 2 years ago?
and
Uh,
they've given him permission to seek a trade.
yeah. So that means they're already moving on from him. So
Hmm.
this is a franchise that is in win now mode within the next year or two, and then they're going to try to transition back down. I mean, back into a. Excuse me, I'm sorry, but
You're
they
all
were
right.
trying to transition back into a probably a rebuild at least at that offensive side of the ball. So I mean, if we're discussing what they would need, if we're looking draft wise, I think the first thing they're going to want to look at, especially with Dwayne Brown being a free agent and he's 38 years old, is offensive tackle. I would say that is a priority for them with that 10th pick, and I'm pretty sure there will be a key lineman there. We'll throw out some names once we get to our combine segments, but I found them intriguing because they Robert Sala has gotten the most out of what he could get with what he has, and particularly on that offensive side of the ball. You know, you dealt a bad hand the first game with Aaron Rodgers going down. So that means you got to go back to Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's mindset is already knowing, man, y'all don't want me here anyway. You know, on top of all the other things and the way he thinks, but you were able to maximize to get 7 wins out of that team, which with Aaron, I honestly believe they would have been a playoff team. Um, but what are your on that? What would you care to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to start freeing up some cap space, restructuring some deals. Like I said, we already said you're gonna have to pay Sauce after this year, if I'm not mistaken, maybe next year.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Garrett Wilson are both going to be coming up for contracts. They're going to deserve to set the market. Um, but with the fact that it's Aaron Rodgers, if the Packers release David Bakhtiari, that kind of fills that left tackle position for you. Mekhi Becton is a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
They've had decent interior offensive linemen, but I think Elijah Vera Tucker has been hurt the past 2 seasons,
Mm-hmm.
or finished the past 2 seasons hurt. They got Joe Tippmann at center. It's best to go ahead and try to build that front, that offensive front. The defense is going. We know what the defense can do. You're only going to have to really plug and play a few pieces, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They've drafted Will McDonald, like you spoke of, Jermaine um, Johnson from Florida State. So losing Bryce is not going to be that big a deal because they're always able to keep their good rotational players across that defensive front.
Mm-hmm.
If Brock Bowers slides, if Brock Bowers slides to them and they're able to fill draft positions or offensive line positions through free agency, I'd like them to take Brock Bowers. You put Brock Bowers with Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, because you're going to need another target.
Mm-hmm.
Randall Cobb is probably going to retire.
Yeah.
Alan Lazard
Lazard.
deserves to be cut. Um, I don't know if you saw Miko Hardman on the pivot, but
No, I didn't.
I watched him on the pivot. You know that this past season he signed with the Jets, but they traded him back to Kansas City.
Yeah.
He ends up catching the game-winning touchdown for the Super Bowl. But he kind of spoke of their culture and it being different. And that's the thing. The same thing came up about Nathaniel Hackett, who's the offensive coordinator when he was a head coach in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they say everything. The team is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron can do what he wants to do. Aaron makes the calls. So I could definitely see him looking to get Bakhtiari from the Packers.
Yeah.
He's coming off some injuries. He could be a cap casualty, and that's one of his guys. That's one of his guys. But whoever they get, whatever they do, um, if they don't go that route, I can see him taking Olu Fashanu
Yes,
from
that was
from
a
Penn
name.
from
Mm-hmm.
Penn State. I can see them going that route. I don't know if Joe Alt will slide that far. JC Latham, I don't think he'll slide that
Mm-mm.
far. But depending on how the top of that part of the draft shakes out, they're gonna you have got to come away with another playmaker for Aaron
Mm-hmm.
and beef up front to make sure that he's good. This is coming back from the Achilles injury. You got to think he played 4 plays as a Jet.
Yeah.
4 plays as a Jet. So when he signed, it was
Mm-hmm.
different across the board. Like everybody from the defense, everyone was ready to have him. Everyone, their play stepped up and everything. Once he went down, it was like everyone knew like this season's over.
Yeah.
This is a wrap. Um, so Brock Bowers, if he slides, Olu, if they don't go offensive line heavy in the free agency, those would be my top 2 picks for this team.
Okay. Interesting. Um, you're right there with the line pick, as we touched on. Um, that situation with Aaron, though, I would ask you this question: do you think that some of his personality off the field may affect the locker room going into this season, especially since he missed most of the season? He seems to, as you stated, a possibility of bringing in more of his guys who are already long in the tooth, so to say. Would that kind of put a strain on some of the situations in the locker room? I'm not saying there's issues, but it could be in the way that you piling on too many older veterans like Lazard, for example, Randall Cobb, for example. You bringing in too many of his guys that could uh, stunt the growth of the franchise as a whole. Because I mean, we know this is a franchise that traditionally and historically has been on more of the losing end than the winning
Right.
season end, and they're kind of in that middle ground now, depending on how they handle Aaron going forward with his last few years in the league. And then you want to keep, I know it's a win now mode, but wanting to keep bringing in so many former Packers that he played with, could that stun a situation with their younger players and their in the fact that okay, you got guys on rookie contracts still. A lot of them on defense, like Jermaine
Yeah,
Johnson and Sauce Gardner. Do you want to race those rookie years with a bunch of old, long in the tooth veterans? Just
yeah.
because this is what Aaron wants. You're gonna sell your franchise and your younger players who will be here after Aaron to do what Aaron wants. Aaron is not 25. Aaron is not even 35 or 30 anymore. Do you want to keep selling, because if you're going to do that, like for example, you brought in Miko Hardman, pretty sure Aaron signed off on that. You turn around and trade Miko Hardman. What are we doing? You see what
Right.
I'm saying? As an organization, what are we doing here? We're giving too much to a guy who is a franchise and a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he is past his prime, you know. And then you just said that they've already given Wilson permission to seek a trade. That's telling me within a year or two, the Jets are going to find themselves in the position that they were in just 2 years ago.
I don't think uh I don't think this is the same situation as it was with the Packers. I think
Okay.
Aaron, who he was off the field, bothered some of the stuff with the Packers. But if
Hmm.
you look before he got injured, he was hanging out with the younger guys. He was with Sauce Gardner. He was with Garrett Wilson. They were going to Knicks games and things like that. So I don't know that his off the field stuff will
Hmm.
stunt this team. I don't honestly don't think that him bringing in certain guys from the Packers is going to stunt or hurt this team because the
Hmm.
players that they brought in, it's not like they brought in someone to supplement Garrett Wilson.
Okay.
They brought in someone to say, hey, look, this is how they brought in Lazard and Randall Cobb to help that team, to help that wide receiver room. Like, hey, look, this is how Aaron is. This is what Aaron likes. This is how he wants you to run your routes. When he does this, and this, you know what I'm saying? Because they've been with
Hmm.
him for so long. And they were with Nathaniel Hackett. He was their OC in Green Bay. So
Hmm.
telling them the ins and outs of the offense, if you will.
Hmm.
Sauce Gardner loved him. Quentin Williams loved him.
Hmm.
So I don't think that will really hinder the team, but they are definitely going to have to start looking for another signal caller and getting rid of Zach Wilson. Um, we've already touched on the West, but I saw something where the Rams McVay loves dealing with these former top end quarterbacks who were drafted high.
Hmm.
Look what he was able to do with Baker in a short
Hmm.
period of time when Stafford got hurt.
Hmm.
Um, they have a lot of 6 round picks, so you could trade him a 6, 7 round pick and get a former top 2 quarterback in the
Hmm.
draft. He does have ability. He does have an arm. One thing Miko said on the pivot was he was talking about the offense. And
Hmm.
he said when you run in the offense with Aaron, Aaron knows the ins and outs of the offense. He knows what to check to. He said Aaron was phenomenal, and Aaron could tell him, "Hey, look, this one's blitzing." He's like, how do you know how the hell you know he's blitzing? Like he's not
Hmm.
even like showing it or anything, and they'll run the tape, and that guy's blitzing.
Okay.
Um, Zach wasn't. Zach was thinking too much, and if you play football, if you know football, if you're thinking, you're playing slow. You are not reacting to the best of your ability if you're thinking too much.
Hmm.
And so I mean, you can get a six or 7th round pick there. I don't, but yeah, to answer your question, I don't think Aaron's off field stuff will truly hinder him because he's got all these young guys. Aaron's not married, he doesn't have kids, so he can somewhat hang out with these guys.
I got you. That makes sense. Well, we talked about New York and we're going to take it on down to the 305. You touched on it a little bit. We're talking about the Miami Dolphins now, a team that is definitely cap strapped, has a lot of free agents key, led by one Christian
Yeah,
Wilkins. They got some questions with what to do, even on the defensive line with Agba and Jalen Phillips, once again coming off a serious injury. He has an injury history. You got receivers and talented players on the offensive side that you got to pay, that they're coming up. Their contracts are going to be coming up. You got free agents with Connor Williams, other than Christian Wilkins, Braxton Berrios, Cedric Wilson, Jerome Baker, just to name a few. of the players. Isaiah Wynn, I see, is another player.
Robert
Um,
Hunt.
Robert Hunt, yeah, I see that here at guard. So that tells me that they're sitting with that 11-6. They had the 21st pick in the draft. They're about 27.9 million over the cap. They already released what Xavier Howard, right? Excuse me. So I mean, once again, what we're discussing here is always going to be about transition. And this is a team, like you said, because of their transition, their window is really small. Their window to win. I mean,
Yeah.
to win big, and and that it seems like that opportunity is going to close some. Um, they can maneuver, but with the key free agents that uh, they have a lot of offensive weapons, but their defense gonna have some questions here. Where do you see them going? One in the draft. Where would you pick if you're sitting at 21? That's one question. And the second question is um what to do. Would you franchise Christian Wilkins or would you sign and trade him? Those are my two questions for you.
Well, they don't want to let Christian Wilkins go, which is one of the reasons why they let Xavier Howard go.
Mhm,
They're looking to try to lock Christian Wilkins up
mhm,
for the long haul. And I think the reason behind that is you mentioned Jalen Phillips,
mhm.
who tore his Achilles. Bradley Chubb tore his ACL late in the season.
Yes,
Um,
I forgot about him.
what's his name? Van Winkle.
Yeah,
Van Ginkel.
Andrew Van Ginkel. Yeah,
He's also a free agent.
yeah, I
He
see.
stepped up. He stepped up when those guys went down. So, but you're gonna have to build around Tua. You're gonna have to build around Tua. You don't have a lot on your offensive line. You're losing your starting center. You're losing your
Mhm,
starting guard. Um, actually, both your guards.
mhm,
Your interior is done. Um, but the thing is, this is a high free agent or deep free agent class of offensive linemen,
mhm.
but you can't afford any of them. You can't afford any, and you're gonna have to make a decision this year, if I'm not mistaken, with Tua.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to get ready to try to lock him in for a long term deal, and that's gonna hurt. Um, so I'm thinking in the first round, depending on what's there, um, I think you kind of have to go defense.
Okay.
I think you have to go defense. This team couldn't beat anybody that was a playoff caliber team. They put up 70 on the Broncos, but then they were losing, you know, any team that was worth anything last year, well, outside of your Cowboys, they consistently lost the playoff teams.
Yeah.
They consistently lost the playoff teams. They have a nice running game, um, phenomenal wide receivers. This is a nice tight end class.
Mhm,
If you're able to finagle some money around, and build up your defense
mhm.
through free agency, um, but I, man, I really just think you're gonna have to go because, like you said, they're gonna have to pay Phillips. Do you want to do
Mhm,
that with him coming off a major injury? He had to retire when he was in college because of
mhm,
injury. Um, Bradley Chubb's coming off of an injury. If I'm not mistaken, he's already on a bigger deal. Jalen
mhm,
Ramsey's getting older. Is this his final stop? You do have younger corners under him.
mhm,
You'll have to pay Javon Holland next season. They're losing two safeties, Deshaun Elliott and Brandon Jones.
mhm.
There's a there's a lot. Like you don't think about it honestly um, when you think of all 32 teams. The Miami Dolphins may not hop to the front of your head as a with a lot of holes to fill, but they actually have a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah.
They just have a lot of the main things. You get to with some decent blocking. Tyreek
Mhm.
can hit his head on the goalpost anytime he touches the ball. Waddle can do the same thing.
Same thing.
A
Mhm.
Chain can do the same thing. Raheem
Y-
Mostert can do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them come out of this off season either through free agency or the draft with a tight end. Um, Jaheim Bell is someone that I
Mhm.
actually like for them.
Mhm.
Um, just to give Tua another weapon.
Mhm.
Um, but draft wise, man, it really all depends on what they do free agent wise. Like what do they view as their top priority, and I would assume that that's getting offensive help. Maybe Powers Johnson.
Yeah,
I would like to see him in Miami if that's where I'm at. Interior line. He's a center, could possibly play guard, but he'll probably be a phenomenal center in the NFL.
yeah.
That would probably be my pick.
And with them losing with Connor
Connor
Williams being
Williams,
a
yeah,
free agent, yeah, that could be a move for them to look at that center position or at least in the interior uh as a priority. But
because they have Eichenberg, but he was a tackle at Notre Dame. They've played him at
uh-huh.
tackle, guard, and center. So
So
I
he's a
mean,
swing lineman.
yeah,
Yeah.
get you Powers Johnson and
Hmm.
start beefing up that interior offensive line.
Because we do know Tua has a history with his concussions. You
Right,
might want to go with protecting him. I
right.
don't think adding another weapon would be
No,
take priority over the protection at this point. So trenches could be their priority, either
and
both offense and defensive line.
with some of those weapons, I think they'll add some of those in free agency
Yeah,
with cheaper
yeah,
free agent deals. Miko
yeah,
Hardman could be a player for him. The
yeah,
Chiefs released Valdez Scantling
yeah,
because they like speed, but
mm,
I could see them just
yeah,
cherry picking a few
yeah. Because
role players here and there because their offense is pretty much set.
yeah, it's when their offense is win now, while their
Yeah,
defense is a little bit okay. We're headed towards some kind of a transition, but we can stop gap it
yeah,
with a couple of key little minor free agents and maybe a pick. But
right.
yeah, that offensive line seems to be priority. But we don't have to stay on Miami. We can move on to the actual, I believe, division winner, which was same record, 11-6, uh, the Buffalo Bills. The lowly Buffalo Bills. I mean, you don't say that about a team that's made the playoffs consistently as they've had the past couple of years, but it seems like this is a team that can't get out of its own way, whether it's on the sidelines with each other or just on the field with continual errors and lapses, namely at the quarterback position. With Josh Allen, we've asked this question about game changer, game manager. We've asked it before on a previous show, so we don't have to talk about it, but with the things they have going on. As I see, they have free agents like Micah Hyde, Daquan Jones, Leonard Floyd is another one, Tim Settle in the middle, Jordan Phillips, just to name a few. And then not even guys that are what to do with Diggs,
Because
uh,
Gabe Davis is a free agent too.
because Gabe Davis. Yeah, I'm going down the line. I just see it now. Um, I find it intriguing because they're in a position of just like the Dolphins in certain, but a little bit more to the extent of their window is closing.
Yes,
Their window is closing. They've been to numerous playoff appearances. I think whether it was the AFC Championship game 2 years ago, I believe it was. Was it 2 years ago?
2 years
Was
ago they lost to the Bengals,
the
I believe.
Bengals? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it was. That's what it was. I'm sorry. Um, but this is a team that's not in flux, not in a serious transition as far as they're headed on the back end of careers, but they got to make a decision because there's some situations that seems to be, I wouldn't call it locker room issues, but there is a disconnect between your primary wide receiver, your number one, and your franchise quarterback. And then there's questions also about, can your franchise quarterback get it done? I'm
right.
like, Josh Allen, it's been tethered to what's the name, Baltimore. I don't know why,
To
Lamar
Lamar,
Jackson, tethered. But really, you got to start looking at Josh Allen and saying, okay, are we dealing with a Dak Prescott situation? As he's get it done in the regular season, but when we get to the playoffs, we seem to have these same situations and where he'll show up, but then he won't show up.
yeah.
Um, you got any takes on that? I don't necessarily have any serious questions, but they do have what I wrote down at the notes is 41.4 million over the cap.
Well, they have a bunch of big contracts.
Yeah.
Von Miller's on a big contract. Josh Allen's on a big contract. You just signed Ed Oliver. He's on a big contract.
Hmm.
Tre'Davious White is on a bigger contract, and he's been injured the past 2 seasons. Diggs is on a big contract. So
Hmm.
you're not going to be able to. They re-signed Dalton Schultz, I believe, a couple seasons ago. He's on a decent sized contract. Um, excuse me. Uh, you're going to lose Gabe Davis. Like
Yeah.
you're going to lose Gabe Davis. The game changer thing, I think Josh Allen's a game changer, but he's a game changer for both teams that are on the field. Like to be honest, with you, um,
Yeah.
he's a good quarterback, but I hate that he gets compared to players that he's accolade wise he's not on their level.
Hmm.
I don't want to hear him this year compared to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
He doesn't he's not an MVP like Lamar. Maybe him and Justin Herbert, like you said, Dak Prescott, because he
Hmm.
does get to the playoffs, but a lot of times he's the reason they lose. A
Yeah.
lot of times he's the reason they lose. Um, are you going to trade Stephon?
Hmm.
Are you going to trade Stephon Diggs? Um, are we going to cut Tre'Davious White? They traded for Rasul Douglas.
Hmm.
Teron Johnson plays ball. You got Michael Hyde. Um, Jordan Poyer is also older, longer in the tooth.
Hmm.
What are you going to do there with him? So this team a lot. I agree that this team's Super Bowl window opportunity is closing, and I think it's closing faster than most people want to admit.
Acknowledge.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like I truly, truly, truly believe that because I know we're on the East, but the Chiefs have the youngest defense.
Hmm.
If they're going to tag and trade L'Jarius Sneed, they can possibly get a haul for him.
Yeah.
The Lions need a DB. The Chiefs could potentially end up with 2 first-round picks this year after winning the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and I believe they'll keep Chris Jones. So
Mm.
this Buffalo Bills team, they did start to come along later in the year, especially with the run game when they transitioned to Joe Brady. But one thing I don't think people are honest about,
Hmm.
James Cook is a great runner. He can catch, but he puts the ball on the ground a lot.
Yeah.
He puts the ball on the ground a lot. And I mean, in certain situations, I don't think this team has I don't think they have the championship mindset.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I thought
Yeah.
that's what they were. I thought that's what they were bringing on Von Miller for, to help that defense get it. That they're going to have to pay Gregory Rousseau as well.
Yes. Yes.
They're going to
Gregory.
have to
So
pay him. They're
yeah.
going to have to pay him. They'll probably let AJ Epinesa go this year. Daquan will probably be gone.
Yeah.
This team is really. I mean, you don't try to get the words right, but to be real with you, this team is going to be on the decline.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if this team is now. They could still be a playoff team,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But not a real contender as
But
far as Super Bowl. Yeah.
I don't view this team as a Super Bowl caliber team, and I guarantee you Vegas probably has them in the top 5 of it, just
Hmm.
because I don't know why they're so crazy about Josh Allen. You compare him to these quarterbacks, and some people compare him to Brett Favre as far as a gunslinger. Yeah, he'll throw the ball out the stadium, but he'll throw the ball directly to you
Yeah.
too. Like he'll throw the ball to the other team.
Yeah.
And playing these teams, you got to win your division first. The Jets can capitalize with their defense. We'll see what the Patriots can do. As we're talking, the Bills should win the division, depending
Hmm.
on because I think they're the team in this division with the least amount of holes at key positions.
Hmm.
I think all the other teams have holes at key positions.
Hmm.
So that's the only reason I think that they will be um, the AFC East divisional winner. So they'll host a playoff game, but round they're not going to make it to the Super Bowl. I don't see this team as a Super Bowl caliber team. No.
I can agree on that. I can agree on that. Well, that brings us to the close of our look at the AFC East division. We thank you. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. We will be back and touching on the AFC North and the NFC East. You stay tuned, and we thank you for joining us at Double D's. Let's talk about it. See ya.